Good morning, 11x1. I hope you are doing well this fine Thursday. So today we're going to continue with our study of Animal Farm with a focus on that old assessment question on leadership. And we're going to zoom in on some of the less obvious examples of leadership within the novel. So if you haven't already, please open the worksheet attached to today's team assignment, and let's have a look at what's there. As you can see in the worksheet, we're looking at leadership and the other animals in Animal Farm that perhaps play a sort of leadership role. I've pulled out from the novel 3 extracts, one from chapter 2, one from chapter 7, one from chapter 9. Let's read these together now. This first one is from chapter 2. It is immediately before the rebellion happens. Okay, so Mr. Jones is still in charge. The pigs had an even harder struggle to counteract the lies put about by Moses, the tame raven. Moses, who was Mr. Jones' special pet, was a spy and a talebearer, but he was also a clever talker. He claimed to know of the existence of a mysterious country called Sugar Candy Mountain, to which all animals went when they died. It was situated somewhere up in the sky, a little distance beyond the clouds, Moses said. In Sugar Candy Mountain, it was Sunday 7 days a week. Clover was in season all the year round, and lump sugar in linseed cake grew on the hedges. The animals hated Moses because he told tales and did no work. But some of them believed in Sugar Candy Mountain, and the pigs had to argue very hard to persuade them that there was no such place. Their most faithful disciples were the 2 cart horses, Boxer and Clover. These two had great difficulty in thinking anything out for themselves, but having once accepted the pigs as their teachers, they absorbed everything that they were told and passed it on to the other animals by simple arguments. They were unfailing in their attendance at the secret meetings in the barn and led the singing of Beasts of England, with which the meetings always ended. 2 things to pick out from this extract in chapter 2. 1, the role that Moses is playing here. Hated but listened to. And what he's talking about, this place called Sugar Candy Mountain. Think about what that might represent within the world of Animal Farm. And then we've got Boxer and Clover. We're told they're not very intelligent. They had great difficulty in thinking anything out for themselves. But they accept the pigs as their own leaders. They absorb everything the pigs are telling them. Now remember, at this point, the pigs are taking almost like the religion or the belief, the ideological system of Old Major, who represents Marx in this in some ways. And those pigs are passing it on to the other animals. Boxer and Clover are the ones who seem to listen to it the best. And then they absorbed everything that they were told and passed it on to the other animals by simple arguments. So what role are Boxer and Clover perhaps playing here? Let's move on to chapter 7 extract now. When it was all over, the remaining animals, except for the pigs and dogs, crept away in a body. They were shaken and miserable. Now, this part is happening, chapter 7, right after the purges that Napoleon has triggered, where he has slaughtered some of the other animals. Remember that one of the earlier commandments was that no animal will harm another animal, that humans were the enemy. And yet here they've just witnessed the killing of their comrades by the pigs, by the dogs, and so on. So they are in shock. So let's continue with chapter 7. They were shaken and miserable. They did not know what was more shocking, the treachery of the animals who had leagued themselves with Snowball, or the cruel retribution they had just witnessed. In the old days, there had often been scenes of bloodshed equally terrible, but it seemed to all of them that it was far worse now that it was happening among themselves. Since Jones had left the farm, until today, no animal had killed another animal. Not even a rat had been killed. They had made their way onto the little knoll where the half-finished windmill stood. With one accord, they all lay down as though huddling together for warmth. Clover, Muriel, Benjamin, the cows, the sheep, and a whole flock of geese and hens. Everyone, indeed, except the cat, who had suddenly disappeared just before Napoleon ordered the animals to assemble. For some time nobody spoke. Only Boxer remained on his feet. He fidgeted to and fro, swishing his long black tail against his sides and occasionally uttering a little whinny of surprise. Finally he said, "I do not understand it. I would not have believed that such things could happen on our farm. It must be due to some fault in ourselves. The solution, as I see it, is to work harder. From now onwards I shall get up a full hour earlier in the mornings." And he moved off at his lumbering trot and made for the quarry. Having got there, he collected 2 successive loads of stone and dragged them down to the windmill before retiring for the night. Now it's worth pausing here for a moment to consider what Boxer has just done. If you think of him as a leadership figure, what example is he setting for the other animals? Where is he placing the blame? What solution is he offering? Okay, it's a very important passage, and it says a lot about the character of Boxer. Some of it positive, some of it negative. Now, this next part of the extract is in some ways some of the most beautiful writing in Animal Farm. George Orwell offers up, through the character of Clover, a view of the farm. And the language choices create a real sense of beauty and love, which is coming immediately after the slaughter and the shock. So there's a powerful contrast set there. And it's an important one. And because we're seeing it through the eyes of Clover here, it is setting this character up in a sort of a leadership role and try and be sensitive to how she might be offering a form of leadership to the other animals who are also equally shocked and horrified by what's happened. The animals huddled about Clover, not speaking. The knoll where they were lying gave them a wide prospect across the countryside. Most of Animal Farm was within their view. The long pasture stretching down to the main road, the hayfield, the spinney, the drinking pool, the ploughed fields where the young wheat was thick and green, and the red roofs of the farm buildings with the smoke curling from the chimneys. It was a clear spring evening. The grass and the bursting hedges were gilded by the level rays of the sun. Never had the farm, with a kind of surprise they remembered that it was their own farm, every inch of it their own property, appeared to the animals so desirable a place. As Clover looked down the hillside, her eyes filled with tears. If she could have spoken her thoughts, it would have been to say that this was not what they had aimed at when they had set themselves years ago to work for the overthrow of the human race. These scenes of terror and slaughter were not what they had looked forward to on that night when old Major first stirred them to rebellion. If she herself had had any picture of the future, it had been of a society of animals set free from hunger and the whip, all equal, each working according to his capacity, the strong protecting the weak, as she had protected the lost brood of ducklings with her foreleg on the night of Major's speech. Instead, she did not know why, they had come to a time when no one dared speak his mind, when fierce, growling dogs roamed everywhere, and when you had to watch your comrades torn to pieces after confessing to shocking crimes. There was no thought of rebellion or disobedience in her mind. She knew that, even as things were, they were far better off than they had been in the days of Jones, and that before all else it was needful to prevent the return of the human beings. Whatever happened, she would remain faithful, work hard, carry out the orders that were given to her, and accept the leadership of Napoleon. But still, it was not for this that she and all the other animals had hoped and toiled. It was not for this that they had built the windmill and faced the bullets of Jones's gun. Such were her thoughts, though she lacked the words to express them. At last, feeling this to be in some way a substitute for the words she was unable to find, she began to sing Beasts of England. The other animals sitting round her took it up, and they sang it 3 times over, very tunefully, but slowly and mournfully, in a way they had never sung it before. This scene near the end of the chapter is a very important one within the novel and resonates, I think, well beyond just the fiction of Animal Farm. When George Orwell writes and Clover speaks that if she herself had had any picture of the future, it had been of a society of animals set free from hunger and the whip, all equal, each working according to his capacity, the strong protecting the weak, as she had protected the lost brood of ducklings with her foreleg on the night of Major's speech. And then she adds, instead, she did not know why. They had come to a time when no one dared speak his mind, when fierce, growling dogs roamed everywhere, and when you had to watch your comrades torn to pieces after confessing the shocking crimes. I wonder how this might express the thoughts and the feelings of people living under any totalitarian regime. Did people living under the Nazis, who had perhaps played a part in the rise of the party, find themselves living in fear with dogs, growling dogs, figures of terror, and policing roaming outside their homes? They find themselves shocked to be living in this environment. For everyone who supported or who have supported totalitarian regimes in the past, how many of them found themselves confused to be living in a system that they thought was a good idea that would bring equality and fairness, and instead found themselves living in oppression and fear? So I think Orwell is getting at something very meaningful here, and getting at a truth that resonates through human history. But within all that, Clover is playing a leadership role for the other animals, as she protected the ducks, as she is the center of the animals huddled around her. She offers them something. What does she offer them? And again, is this positive, negative, or is it somewhat more ambiguous than that? The final extract that we're revisiting today is from chapter 9. So this is quite close to the end of the novel. We are sadly in the final days of Boxer here. They're working to rebuild the windmill. And we have the reappearance of Moses, who disappeared quite early in the novel. In the middle of the summer, Moses the raven suddenly reappeared on the farm after an absence of several years. He was quite unchanged, still did no work, and talked in the same strain as ever about Sugar Candy Mountain. He would perch on a stump, flap his black wings, and talk by the hour to anyone who would listen. "Up there, comrades," he would say solemnly, pointing to the sky with his large beak. "Up there, just on the other side of the dark cloud that you can see, there it lies, Sugar Candy Mountain, that happy country where we poor animals shall rest forever from our labors." He even claimed to have been there on one of his higher flights, and to have seen the everlasting fields of clover and the linseed cake and lump sugar growing on the hedges. Many of the animals believed him. Their lives now, they reasoned, were hungry and laborious. Was it not right and just that a better world should exist somewhere else? A thing that was difficult to determine was the attitude of the pigs towards Moses. They all declared contemptuously that his stories about Sugar Candy Mountain were lies. And yet they allowed him to remain on the farm, not working, with an allowance of a gill of beer a day. Now, this appearance of Moses serves an important purpose within the text, and it makes a good contrast with his previous appearance. He's offering them visions of another life, of another world where things are better. They hated him earlier in the novel, though they did listen. Now they find his words even more persuasive, because the contrast with their current life makes what he's offering them very appealing. And though there's often animals insisting that life is better now than it was under the humans, the fact that under Mr. Jones's leadership they had less time for him than they do now suggests that actually their perception of this is wrong, that life is more miserable. Otherwise they wouldn't be so eager to listen to the world of Sugar Candy Mountain that he offers. So think of Moses as a leader here. What is he offering? More importantly is the change in attitude of the pigs. Previously they hated him. They said everything he said was a lie. Now they allow him to remain, They pay him, even. Why would they do that? So that's a very important thing to consider. Now the final part of our extracts for today. Let's read this last bit. After his hoof had healed up, Boxer worked harder than ever. Indeed, all the animals worked like slaves that year. Apart from the regular work of the farm and the rebuilding of the windmill, there was the schoolhouse for the young pigs, which was started in March. Sometimes the long hours on insufficient food were hard to bear, but Boxer never faltered. In nothing that he said or did was there any sign that his strength was not what it had been. It was only his appearance that was a little altered. His hide was less shiny than it had used to be, and his great haunches seemed to have shrunken. The others said, "Boxer will pick up when the spring grass comes on." But the spring came, and Boxer grew no fatter. Sometimes on the slope leading to the top of the quarry, when he braced his muscles against the weight of some vast boulder, it seemed that nothing kept him on his feet except the will to continue. At such times his lips were seen to form the words, "I will work harder." He had no voice left. Once again Clover and Benjamin warned him to take care of his health, but Boxer paid no attention. His 12th birthday was approaching. He did not care what happened so long as a good store of stone was accumulated before he went on pension. So we see here that Boxer is in many ways unchanged from earlier in the novel. He's still working hard. He's working himself through pain and exhaustion, old age, injury. And he sets this example of hard, incessant work. "I will work harder," he continues to say, even without a voice. So, what example is he setting for the other animals here? What kind of leadership is he offering to the animals? And is this good or is this bad? Okay, so across the 3 extracts we've looked at here, with a focus on Moses, Boxer, and Clover, what form of leadership are they offering the animals? What role do they play within the farm as such? And consider, again, whether it's positive or negative or ambiguous, and even, if you want to push it a bit further, how things may have played out differently without these 3 animals playing this secondary leadership role. Okay, and this leads us up into the main activity of today. After we've just finished it, we've read the extracts together. You're now going to pull out smaller quotes, evidence from within those extracts to explore the leadership role that Moses, Boxer, and Clover play. I pulled out the quotes for you, but you are, of course, invited to pull out any other quotes that you are aware of, either within the bits I've shown you or from elsewhere in the novel. But focus on these 3 characters. For the quotes I've given you here, can you write bullet point form or long sentences, your choice, but we don't need to worry about full paragraphs yet. What do we learn about these characters? What kind of leadership are they offering? What style of leadership do they present? When you compare them to Jones, Napoleon, and Snowball, what part do Moses, Boxer, and Clover play in leading and guiding the animals? And as I suggested earlier, consider also whether these examples, this leadership, is a positive thing, a negative thing, or more realistically, something that is both and somewhat ambiguous. Okay? So I leave you with this work. You can see the quotes here, and for those who want to extend themselves, reach into the rest of the text to find other examples, but you've got more than enough work here for today. Again, you don't have to write anything up into any full paragraphs. That's something we're going to be working on tomorrow, and we'll be looking at how to draw all this information together into a well-written, coherent paragraph that expresses a point or an argument well, so that when we look at improving the quality of our examination responses for the kind of questions you get with Edexcel, next week we'll use all this to build towards a progress assessment. But for now, I leave you with this work. And so there you have it, 11x1. At 20 minutes, I'm sure this video is starting to stretch your patience a little bit, but I hope you have found it useful. I am trying to teach you as best I can via this medium. Don't spend more than an hour on this work. Do as much of it as you can, but please attempt as much of the work as you can. And I will see you tomorrow. In the meantime, please keep healthy, keep safe, and goodbye.